So, I got my first job when I was 17, and it's pretty crazy looking back on it. I was just laying around my parents' house one summer, bored out of my mind with only $20 to my name, and I distinctly remember thinking, ah, I really need to get a job. So that's what I did, and my poor feet have not known peace since. I've actually got a lot of stories from the various jobs I've worked in the past. Some of them I've managed to share on here in previous videos, but I have a lot more stories that I haven't shared that I love to bring up to friends, family, and new coworkers because they're pretty insane. So today I'm going to be telling you guys about the craziest things or most interesting things that have ever happened to me while I was on the clock at each of my previous places of employment. So my first job, the one that I wound up getting because I was bored, was as a bagger and carryout at this little mom and pop grocery store in my hometown. I'm not going to mention any of these places by name, only because I have no idea how many problems I'd wind up causing by doing so. The thing that you should know about this particular store, along with a good chunk of people in my hometown, is that the owners and managers there were all really conservative. For context, this was the place I was working at when I came out as trans, and let's just say they weren't the most accepting people in my life at the time. What's important to keep in mind about this place is that everybody that worked there went by a nickname, which the manager would give us within our first few weeks of employment. Mine started off as T-Dog because of my dead name and because the manager thought it sounded cool. But it very quickly changed over to a different nickname thanks to one of my coworkers that I was also going to school with. And this nickname got a lot of weird looks from the customers that heard him say it. Beaner. My nickname at this job was Beaner. And it's not derogatory for me because I'm very much a basic, boring white boy, but my dead name is Christina, and I was called Tina for short. And the coworker that I mentioned, we've actually known each other since kindergarten, and I think we were in like 4th or 5th grade when he started calling me Teen Beaner. Eventually, it just got shortened to Beaner. I don't know, it was years before I learned what Beaner actually meant and that it's not a nice thing to call somebody that's Mexican or Hispanic. Anyway, when I came out as trans, I thought it wouldn't be that big of a deal given that we all had nicknames. Yeah, no, my bosses absolutely refused to acknowledge the fact that I was trans. I wasn't allowed to go by my preferred name, Eli, because, and I quote, it wasn't my real name or on any of my legal documents. Well, neither is Beaner, and you call me that every single day. Luckily, my coworkers at the time could see what a massive pile of bullshit this was, and they'd refer to me as Eli when my bosses weren't looking. The managers at that store still refer to me as Beaner whenever I shop there, by the way. My second job was at a factory that made ranch dressing, and no, it's not Hidden Valley, but it's another major dip and dressing brand that we have here in Michigan. Anyways, I worked in the sanitation department. Basically, my job was to make sure that the floors were always clean and sanitized around the facility. I was basically just a janitor, but it paid good. $17 an hour, can't beat that. I'm still mad at myself for walking off that job. Anyways, given that this was a factory that made mostly ranch, you can imagine that there were times when the other cleaners and I had to clean up some pretty nasty spills. But nothing, and I mean nothing, that I've experienced before or since can compare to the time when I was faced with a high-low that dropped a 60-gallon drum of vanilla Greek yogurt dressing all over the floor. Oh my god, it took me and the other sanitation workers hours to clean this mess up. We used squeegees, we used shovels, we used mops. It was bad. It got all over our boots, all over our aprons, all over our clothes. It stuck to our gloves so our fingers would be sticking together. And what made it worse was that all of this took place in the cooler. So we spent up to 5 hours of our night wet, sticky, and cold. This situation definitely wasn't helped by the fact that there would be high-low drivers that would try to drive through the spill and would end up getting stuck. To be fair, this spill did happen in front of one of the high-low doors that went into the cooler, but there was another door that they could use 2 aisles over. When the sanitation workers say you can't drive through the dressing spill, don't drive through the dressing spill. You're gonna get stuck. This was also the job that gave me a total sailor mouth. I grew up in a very sheltered household where I wasn't allowed to cuss or swear, so whenever I'd get mad, I'd say things like, "Oh, biscuits," or "Gosh darn it," or "This stupid piece of garbage." And one day, this dude named Juan, I called him Juanito because he was short, he was like, "You're allowed to cuss if you want. We're all factory workers here. We don't give a flying fuck." So, thank you, Juan. You gave me a profanity button, and now I don't know how to turn it off. My third job was a freight handling position in a warehouse that supplies one of the big chain grocery stores we have here in Michigan. And even though it paid very well, it was competitive pay. And just about everyone at this facility worked themselves to the bone every single day. They don't call these types of places sweatshops for nothing, people. I'd say the only pro that this job offered me was that it was manual labor, so I basically got a full body workout every single day. Like, seriously, I could toss 40 to 60 pound boxes like they were basketballs. But everything else was a con. It was loud, it was dirty, and we'd work until the work was done. Meaning you could be there 6 to 8 hours, a normal work day, or you could be there 12 to 14 or more hours. My shift started at high noon every single day, and sometimes I'd get out at like 8 or 9 p.m. Sometimes I didn't come home until about midnight or 2 a.m. It sucked. Now, this facility was massive. It had about 600 to 800 doors for trucks, and I'm willing to bet that it was at least 3/4 of a mile in length. Meaning that if you got in and you met the boss man at door number 412 and he put you on door 28, get ready to walk because that's literally half a mile away. And I know that because that's exactly what happened to me. I finished a truck, and my boss put me on another that was on the clear opposite side of the building. And there were no shortcuts. Sometimes people broke the rules and hitched a ride standing on the forks of forklifts and high-lows that would drive back and forth, but I didn't get that. And my boss got mad at me when it took me 20 minutes to walk all the way to door 28 from 412. And then my coworkers got mad at me for being out of breath for trying to hustle my way there. In a weird way, I actually kind of miss working at that warehouse, but I do not miss my boss or the way things were run. If they'd made my line lead the boss and maybe put a transport service for when we got sent to the other side of the freaking warehouse, I might think about going back. But overall, 3 out of 10, definitely would not recommend. My fourth job was my first official gig as a janitor and custodian. I worked for a company at this huge high school in Battle Creek that I'm pretty sure could pass for a mini college campus. It had 3 floors to it, 8 stairwells, 2 elevators, and a pool. And there were only like 4 or 5 of us at any given time to clean the entire building. Again, it sucked. Okay, so one day I got a call at 1 o'clock in the morning from my boss asking if I could cover the morning shift at the elementary school to this district, on top of my 8-hour shift at the high school. And me, being the good little drone that I am, said, "Sure thing, no problem." And then I didn't sleep for the rest of the night because I was constantly thinking about having to wake up early to make it to the elementary school by 9 a.m. I ended up working from 9 o'clock in the morning all the way to 9:30 at night on no sleep. And when I got home, I immediately went upstairs and fell asleep. The roommates that I was living with at the time saw and heard the whole thing go down. And by the whole thing, I mean me. My friend Ben says he tried saying hi to me when I walked through the door, but I just kinda zombie walked past him, went up the stairs to my bedroom, and collapsed in my bed. And this is how I found out that when I am severely sleep deprived and overworked, I snore loudly. To quote my roommates, I sounded like the biggest lumberjack in the biggest forest, cutting down the biggest tree with the biggest chainsaw they had ever heard in their lives. And they were hearing me do this through the living room ceiling, which sat right below my bedroom. Yeah, I wound up sleeping 12 and a half hours straight and taking the following day off. My fifth job, which I was at for a year and a half, was another custodial company that worked for my local school district. And I was placed at the middle school originally, but then they moved me to the upper elementary school for reasons? I don't really know. I think they just needed the help more at the time. Honestly, not much really ever happened aside from, the usual. Take out the trash, wipe down desks and counters, clean the bathrooms, vacuum the classrooms, scrub the floors in the hallways and the cafeteria. And normally, doing all of this took me about 9 to 10 hours for the school. Here's the thing though. I was supposed to have a set schedule of 8 hours per night and be out of the building by 11 p.m. But that's not how it would normally go down. I'd always go over my time, and what was worse was that the school had a security alarm that was programmed to set itself at midnight every single night. And if anyone was inside the school after that time, motion sensors would trigger the alarm and send a signal to the nearest police station. So, for every single weeknight for an entire year, the police would be notified that someone was inside the local elementary school after hours and go see what the cause was, only to see my dumb ass waiting for them at the door. This was such a common occurrence that they started expecting it. They started to expect it. It became routine. And thanks to that, I have a very good relationship with my local police department that is still going strong to this day. Then I left that job to do YouTube for 6 months. Honestly, I think the best part about that time was during September of 2020, where I'd hop in my car and drive somewhere peaceful and quiet, like my local and state parks, sit on a picnic table, and work on videos. For the record, during that entire 6-month period, my parents had no idea that I had quit my day job to pursue YouTube because I just knew I was going to get a lecture from them. So for 8 hours per day, from 2 p.m. to 10 p.m., I'd drive myself to one location or another to work on videos under the guise of going to my janitorial job. Honestly, it was the best month for me in 2020, and I really wish I could go back to it. Of course, as I've mentioned in the past, eventually YouTube stopped paying the bills and I had to go back to work. I think my attempt to do a Halloween marathon where I uploaded a video every single day caused me to burn out, which, if you look at the videos I've posted since then, seems to have impacted my ability to make and upload content on a regular basis up to this day. The job I wound up getting was another janitorial position, and this was the job that tried to frame me for a crime I didn't commit, which I made an entire video about already. That would have to be the most eventful thing that ever happened to me at that job. And if you're wondering how that situation wound up panning out, I don't know. I haven't heard anything more on the matter, and I most certainly wasn't charged with anything, so... Apart from that incident, I would have to say something else that happened, which I'm quite proud of actually, is that I cleaned up and renovated an entire garden that this school had in the middle of the building. During the pandemic, nobody bothered to maintain this garden and it became overrun with a bunch of vines and ivy and weeds, so they sent me in to clean this place up, and honestly, I kind of like doing it. Maybe I should pursue a career in gardening or landscaping. That might be nice. Which brings us to where we are today. Currently, I'm a full-time third shifter working at a gas station near to where I live, and honestly, not a lot of interesting stories to tell. Since it's customer service, I do have to deal with the occasional drunk or stoner or out-of-towner looking for directions, and every so often I get a Karen, "Oh, I have a story about that." Okay. So this happened about 2 or 3 months after my dad passed away. A lady comes in one night while I'm working at about 10:30 or 11 o'clock, so just as I'm starting my shift. All she's getting is a Mountain Dew, and she tells me that the chip to her debit card is broken. But that's okay, because she comes in here all the time, and the clerk always lets her swipe her card. Now, that wouldn't be a problem, except our card readers at the front counter don't allow swipe if the card has a chip. Now, if the reader fails to read the chip 3 times, the machine will instruct the customer to swipe the card, but it just gives them a message that swipe is not allowed. It's stupid, I know, but there's nothing I can do about it. Another problem I think would be important to mention would be that I'd been working at this gas station for a year and a half at this point, and the full-time third shifter manning the counter had never seen this woman before in his goddamn life. But remember, I'm a good little drone, so I humor this woman's request to swipe her card. Surprise, surprise, it doesn't work. I let her try her chip again. It doesn't work. She tries swiping again. It doesn't work. I try inputting the information on the card manually. It doesn't work. Mind you, the entire time this is happening, Karen is giving me attitude, saying things like, I don't understand why it isn't working. I come in here all the time. It always works for me. Usually there's an older lady that's behind the counter when I come in, and she always lets me swipe my card. I don't know if maybe she was thinking of a different location under the same name, or if she was making it up on the fly, but again, I have to emphasize that the full-time third shifter that had been there for a year and a half had never seen this woman before in his goddamn life. The only other third shifter that matched the clerk this woman was describing only worked 2 nights out of the week, and they'd been fired 6 months prior. Eventually, I run out of options, so at the request of this woman, I call up my manager to see if we can work out a solution. Because again, I can't emphasize this enough. I'm a good, obedient little drone. My boss doesn't answer, so I call my assistant manager to see if I can get in contact with them. Now, there's something you need to keep in mind about me. I'm someone that responds to how other people are feeling. Meaning, if you're calm and collected, I'm calm and collected. You're smiling and happy, I'm smiling and happy. You're stressed and angry, well, at best, I'm poker-faced and trying to keep a cool head. At worst, well, let me just tell you. As I'm on the phone with my assistant manager trying to come up with a solution, I'm getting frustrated. My customer is frustrated and has stopped listening to me. My manager won't pick up the phone, and everything the assistant manager is recommending to me are things I've already tried. And before my assistant manager can think of anything more that may help, my customer lashes out and asks, "Why are you giving me attitude?" And in a fraction of a second, this good, obedient little drone went rogue. Without missing a beat, I look at this woman dead in the eyes and retort, because I'm third shift. And just like that, all hell broke loose. This woman explodes, saying things like, "Do you even like working here? Because it doesn't really seem like it. What have you even been doing for the past 2 years? Sitting on your ass collecting unemployment? This is ridiculous. I'm calling in the morning and complaining." Just hitting all the low-hanging fruit she can possibly find. And you want to know what I said? Be my guest. Now get the fuck out of my store. I'm pretty sure at one point I also referred to her as Karen, and mind you, the entire time this woman and I are screaming at each other, my assistant manager is still on the phone listening to the whole thing go down. And you want to know the best part of this whole story? My manager and the assistant manager wound up siding with me. I was never reprimanded or punished for the things that I said, and Karen never wound up calling to complain about me. Not the store, not corporate, nothing. She also pulled the whole "I'm never coming back here again" shtick, which, to all the Karens of the world, please don't. Because if you're going to be nasty like that, then the cashiers and the food service workers don't want you to come back. It is no skin off our backs. We are not going to lose any sleep over it. Anyways, that'll be all for this video, you guys. Thank you for watching. I know this video was pretty long, but hopefully I managed to keep things entertaining for you. I've definitely got a lot of IRL stories I'd like to cover, and at the moment I'm trying to work out an upload schedule that'll work well with my other work schedule, but I've also got a lot of other personal things going on. Anyways, let me know what you thought about this video down in the comment section below. My name is BlueRaven666, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye-bye.